What is up, friends? Welcome back. It is cold in the national capital of Canada, but we do have the world's largest skating rink currently open. Today we're going to dig into a new library from Soundiron called Radiant Decay. It is a collaboration with sound designer and composer Eric McNeary. It is on the synthy, atmospheric, electronic, dystopian side of things. It's got a wickedly cool interface, as we would expect from Soundiron. Let's dive right in. They got this XY thing going on, and then they have this graphical representation of being sucked into the radiant eye. Very, very cool stuff. If you want to take a break from it, you can click on this button right here. That'll turn off the actual display of the interface. If the moving XY axis is too much, you can turn that off too. Click on this macros button. There's your X axis and there's your Y axis. Okay, and now it's not moving, and then you can control with the mod wheel. Or you can assign it to your controllers. If you have some faders, you can have the X on one, the Y on the other. The sky is the limit. If you own any of their Sonospheres collections, I just did a review on Limitless last week. This interface is going to look very, very familiar. We have our 4 quadrants of sound. So these are all pulled from the same library. Now this is going to be a little bit different than what we had with Sonosphere Limitless, which had each of the 4 libraries, 1 per quadrant. These are all pulling from the same samples, and it's basically just layering them. As you click on each one of these quadrants, you're going to have access to its own individual controls. If, for instance, I change the volume for quadrant 1, it will not affect the volume for quadrant 2. Okay, so these all have independent controls. You have your categories, and then I guess your subcategories, and then your individual patches under that. You have these 4 macros controllers, which are programmable. So we have LFO, we have filter, and we have an arpeggiator. You have your macros controls. This is the shuffle button. It has changed all 4 quadrants. Let's hit it again. Let's say I want to keep this lead sound though. I can hit that lock button now, and I hit the shuffle button. This quadrant is staying the same, and the other ones are changing. I love rolling the dice because I love seeing what it is going to come up with. You have some additional settings in here, X fade, octave for multi-voice. You have some legato controls. These would be useful if you're trying to create a lead. If I turn this legato control, put it all the way to the right, it's going to very slowly move between the pitches. Okay, so if you want to create like a really big rise, if I do it all the way the other way, down at the bottom we have the FX rack. Don't ignore the FX rack, and I'm going to show you some things that I did in this song. I find with these multi-layered kind of big atmospheric electronic based libraries, you really got to go in there and you got to mess around with the effects racks. I like these kind of controls because you can dial things in all within the library itself without having to worry about going into Logic or whatever and adding a bunch of extra stuff. So I like to just kind of get the sound pretty close to where I want it using the plugin itself. I always like to start with presets. I think it's a really good starting point, and then you find something that's close to what you want, and then you can kind of build around there. Madness. Chasing the circus. Cloudy Dreams. So I can definitely hear that blowing mallet in there. If you want more of it, or you want less of that. Alright. The valse never ends. Fantastic presets. Let's check out The Broken Sun. Absolute madness. Unlocking wisdom. I like that bass sound, that's very cool. Effects. I'm just gonna randomly go through these. Kidding around. Madness. Misaligned portal. Nightmare Carnival. There's a bit of a circus theme going on here. Leads. Clanging metal. It's the equivalent of finger tapping on the keyboard. Those are big leads. Okay. Pads. Gentle morning. Textures. Batten down the hatches. I never figured out what that means. Something to do with a ship. I'm not a sailor, so I feel like it's a sailing thing. Interrupter. Ocean Orchestra. Open Fields. All right, then we get some vintage 80s horror pad. Very broken broadcast. I like that one. Still going. Hidden places. So you get the idea. Tons of presets. You can start there, and you can find that the sounds now have gotten so much bigger because we're making use of all 4 quadrants. Let's dive into the composition and we'll see what we did with it. In the blue is all the Radiant Decay patches. I added 1 patch from Sonosphere, which I thought would go really well with this. A couple of tracks from Apocalypse Percussion, and then 1 from Temple Drums. I started with some presets, Beautiful Wonder, and then I dug around and changed some parameters. Let's listen to this one. I think for this one, I added a little bit of delay just to make it a little bit more kind of background. Any of the EQ that I've done have just been kind of like low-mid scoops, just kind of any built-up resonance going on there. Rolling Wisdom. Literally just one note to open the track. Let's listen to that. Then we have this kind of organ sound. Heaven. Let's check this one out. As you can see, when I'm using pads like that have kind of like a long release, I keep lots of space in between the notes. Otherwise, it just kind of like eats everything up. Then we have Radiant Decay Winter Water Pad. Let's check this out. Another good example how there's lots of space in between those notes, especially that one, because there's just like, that one's a really effects heavy, calming stillness. So a lot of atmospheric kind of pad-like sounds kind of going together. We got some Radiant Decay feedback. Radiant Decay massive organ. This song kind of turned into like this sort of 80s synth vibe. Foggy Windows. Bass sound. This one I rolled out some of the high end so that it stays where it should be. I might have pulled back some effects and stuff like that just to clean that one up a little bit. And then we added some Sonospheres, which again, I did a full review and I won't get into because it's not the point of this video. But as you can see, the interface is very, very similar. I like their processed piano sounds from this library. So I thought this would go really well with that. So that's what this one's doing. Let's check it out. piano sound works really well with a little bit of that harp in there, just for a little bit of added accents on those notes, which is this right here. But again, you can fool around with it and bring it back so it's not too much in your face. If you have any of those libraries, you're going to find that this one is very, very easy to use once you get the idea. And then we have some Apocalypse percussion tracks. Let's check this one out. So these are the ensemble clacks. It was a little bit too upfront in the mix. I added some logic delay. Let me play it before and after so you can hear the difference in the sound. So as you can see, completely different sound. I find that mangled percussion sounds work better in these types of mixes. But then I felt like I maybe pushed a little bit too far. So I wanted some more traditional sounds. So then we brought in some bass toms ensemble. Let me play that for you. Just kind of adding some accents to some of those processed sounds. It's a little bit low down in the mix. I didn't want it to kind of overpower all the atmospheric kind of sounds. And then we have the tempo drums. We just have one layer, just the hits and stingers. But what I did was I added some distortion. I might have added the filter in there too. Let's play it with and without these. I'll toggle these on and off so you can hear the difference. I thought that sound was going to work really well with the Radiant Decay and all those like distorted sounds messing around. Who's it for? If you have any of the Sonosphere collection, or if you have the full collection of the Sonosphere Limitless, if you're really into manipulating sound. I wasn't sure how different this library was going to be from Sonospheres, but it is quite a bit different. It's even more sound design heavy than Sonospheres. There's a lot of pads and textured electronic sort of things. I think these libraries are incredibly useful for adding layer and kind of highlighting different parts of your composition so things don't sound really static. If you're into any kind of like sci-fi stuff, dystopian stuff, anything end of world, this type of library is going to work really well with that. When it comes to layering sounds and in terms of how they incorporate them into the GUI, I'd say Soundiron is definitely one of the best. There's just a tremendous amount of thought, obviously, that's gone into it. If I had one wish, it would be for a solo and a mute button for each of the 4 quadrants. Also in Sonospheres, now I know that you can mute individual quadrants. I'd like to also be able to solo each one of them out. Again, if there's a way to do this and I just didn't figure it out, then my apologies to Soundiron. Just a suggestion that if it's not there, I think it would be really handy to have that in there so we can solo out each individual quadrant. That's it for me, my friends. Get out, composing, stay safe. Catch you in the next one.